Hello everyone, my name is Praise and today we'll be learning how to animate a bouncing ball from basic to pro. There are a couple of images in this video where you can pause to see the movements of the ball in each frame. I'm using Creator, but you can also use any animation software you want of your choice. First thing you are going to be doing is opening 3 layers, one for the ball, one for the part in which the ball moves, and one for the ground plane. For starting a ball bounce animation, we need to know the timing, how long the ball will take to complete one bounce cycle. For this ball, it completes its bounce cycle in 1 second. Since I'm using 24 frames per second, so I did a pose to pose animation, starting the animation at frame 0, then the ball hits the ground at frame 12 and bounces back up at frame 24. These are the key poses of the animation. So you know that when the ball at a stationary point, that's the ball at its peak is from 0. So the time it takes for it to hit the ground is half a second, which is the frame 12. Then the time it takes for it to go back to its peak again is the frame 24, which is 1 second. Note, as the ball accelerates down, the ball stretches due to gravity, and as it hits the ground, it squashes, making it gain energy to spring back up. Now, when the ball is coming down, the gravitational force acts on it, which stretches the ball. If the ball is a stretchy ball, it stretches till it hits the ground. So when it hits the ground, it impacts the ground, then it squashes. Now it's going to move back up again, and now it's going to stretch back up. So this is the principle of squash and stretch animation. That's one of the 12 principles of animation. So after you've done this, add in between to make sure it is very smooth. Yeah, you can add in between to make sure it's smooth, and add in between and you can actually go back and tweak your in between to make sure it's natural and it feels good. That's people will be able to read that this is a bouncing ball. Tweak it where you make mistake, go back to clean, adjust the size and everything. Okay, so for the ball bouncing across the screen, we are still using the same 3 layers as the ball bouncing on a spot. Okay, there are images that you can pause to see the movement of the ball in each frame. Now, the ball will take approximately 2 seconds to bounce across the screen. You can actually increase this, or you can just use the 2 seconds. That's to take like 48 seconds for it to bounce across 48 frames for it to bounce across the screen. And after you know the timing, okay, it starts at frame 0, then it ends at frame 48. Now you add your key poses, which are when the ball is at its peak, when the ball hits the ground, and when the ball goes back up, following the trajectory in which the line follows, that in which the ball will follow. Okay, spacing is very important. The idea of spacing is quite simple. The closer the drawings are on each frame, the slower the movements will be. So when I draw the ball very close to each other, yeah, you'll be able to see that that's when the ball is going to its peak. So you'll be able to read that the ball moves a little bit slower than when it's coming down to the ground. So the farther the joints are to each other, the faster the movements will be. So the ball moves faster as it falls and slows down as it rises. This is the concept of slow in and slow out. Also add squash and stretch, just like the ball bounce on a spot, to make it look very appealing and make it look natural. Once you play the animation and it doesn't look like what you want it to be, go back and do some tweaks and changes to it until it feels very natural to you. Now, the ball bouncing across the screen in perspective, we will be using the 3 layers, one for the ball, the other for the trajectory of the ball, and the third one for the ground plane in perspective. In Creator, there is a perspective tool, and I'm sure the animation software you are using has one. But if the one you're using, the animation software you're using doesn't have a perspective tool, you can actually do it manually. Just a 2-point perspective, then rule your line and you're good to go. So we time the animation just like the other two we've done. So this one takes approximately 2 seconds, which is also 48 frames, but we are animating in 2. So we'll do the pose to pose animation when the ball hits the ground and when it's at its peak, following the trajectory of the motion. Then we add in betweens. What you need to keep in mind here is that the size change of the ball when the ball gets nearer to the screen and smaller as it gets further away from the screen. Taking note of the size change, add the in-betweens. Also, you can go back and correct the spacing and timing if the ball bounce feels awkward. Try tweaking it till it feels very natural and very appealing. In this tutorial, we've learned one of the fundamental exercises for beginner animators, which is the bounce, where we talked about some of the principles of animation, like the squash and stretch, the timing, the spacing, and also some principles in perspective. So I won't just like you to watch this video and move on doing maybe watching YouTube and the rest. I would like you to try to animate the 3 ball bounces that we did. So, and you can actually share it with your friends. Hey there, enjoying this tutorial? Don't forget to hit the like button, share with your fellow animators and friends, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Thank you.